I want to talk about my mum. I just saw one of those TikToks that asks you like certain questions, like if you were sat on this bench, who would you want to speak to? You know, if you could speak to anyone in the world or anyone in existence, you know? And I think throughout my life, I've had a lot of different answers to that. So there's been times where I've wanted to speak to God, you know? There's been times where I've wanted to speak to celebrities. There's been times where I've wanted to speak to people that are long gone and dead from history and stuff. But I would pick my mum. And my mum, she died last August, unexpectedly. And she wasn't, she wasn't that special in terms of talking to. She wasn't really, she wasn't wise or anything like that. It was more because my relationship with my mum was quite complicated. And I guess I want to talk about that just to help other people. I guess this is the only reason I do these videos is to maybe, make other people aware of this stuff. Make sure that other people are not alone, that they know that there's other people out there suffering the same thing, or maybe they could, you know, find some peace in this. I don't know. And also to help myself vent and process the grief, I think, as well, because it's still been, it's not been long. It's not even been half a year yet since we lost her. So, um, yeah, the relationship I had with my mum was pretty complicated. I'm one of 5 children that she had. I was the very middle child as well. Um, I would say, mum. I would say she failed us a lot when we were younger. I think in many ways, but at the same time, we were always fed. We went to school. She always got us up every morning. We had clothes. We had very good Christmases as well. We would come into the room, and you can imagine with 5 children, 5 piles of presents every single 25th of December. She did that. She did. There was a lot of good times in my childhood, and I think all my siblings would agree. So there was many ways in which she made growing up very enjoyable. But of course, we always remember the bad stuff over the good stuff. And I've often described my childhood um, in one sort of sentence, and it's what I've said before. I've said this to therapists, I've said this to friends and family and stuff, and I used to say that I remember my mum saying she didn't want me more than I heard her say that she loved me. And honestly, that was true. I didn't actually remember that many times where she would say that. I do remember the times being told I wasn't wanted, though. And again, going back to my previous point. Um, so growing up with that sort of environment and stuff was obviously difficult, and it obviously left its scars. Um, and those scars I'm still dealing with to this day. Um, and over the years, our relationship has sort of been. I wouldn't even say up and down. I would say mostly down and then up in the end. So it was down for the reasons I've just described. And it probably peaked downwards 1 or 2 times. I remember standing in my sister's kitchen, and I don't know what it was, and I was particularly annoyed with her at the time. And she asked me if I thought she was a bad mother. And it was the first time that I just did not have the energy to lie. And I went, yes, I think you're a bad mother. And she didn't like shout back at me. She didn't, she didn't do anything. All she did was just look at me, and I could tell that it hurt her. And that for me, even if I meant it at the time, it hurt me as well. Like telling your mother that is soul destroying because like most of us have empathy. I have too much sometimes where I find it hard not to focus on myself and I always have to sort of help other people or I find myself getting involved in other people's lives when I really don't need to be, you know, and helping too much, you know. And I could tell, even back then when I was a teenager, that I'd hurt my mum. And I hated it, even though I'd said it and meant it. And our relationship sort of didn't really improve much after that, you know. I just sort of spent time with her when I had to, and that was about it for years and years and years. And it got to a point a few years ago, actually, where I gave her the ultimatum because I couldn't handle any more of that relationship, and I felt like I needed to either cut ties with it, cut ties with her, or something needed to change drastically. And with the history that I had with both of my parents, I was very prepared, even though it would hurt, to live my life without them. I've been fortunate enough to be brought up with two sets of parents. I've got another sort of adoptive pair of parents who have been incredibly good with me and my family, and they do treat us like like we are their children, which is always great. It's like a bonus, you know. So I've been fortunate enough to have that sort of parental guidance in other ways from other people. So I guess that sort of helped me. That helped me sort of find the strength to do it. You know, it's not like I was replacing them with them. It was more just I had the support that I needed from people that didn't think that they were replacing my parents either. They was just there sort of, no, we understand and we're here for you if you need us kind of thing. And they would never take sides and they would never sort of badmouth them. They would just sort of listen to my pain and problems and help any way they could. So that definitely helped me sort of find the strength to give that ultimatum. And that's when everything changed. After I told her that, our relationship improved. I listened to her. You know, I forgave her for everything, like I had a long time ago. It was just more I couldn't sort of handle who she was and how she was acting anymore. I'd forgiven her for everything else because I was, you know, I am where I am now. You know, I knew that she did the best she could, and she was going through her own stuff. I'm 36 years old now. I understand that life is difficult and life has its own problems, and raising 5 children is never going to be easy. So yeah, I forgave her for it, but it didn't stop the way that she'd acted in the present. So she surprised me, and I think surprised my siblings and other people as well with how she started acting. She started caring. She started contacting me more often. She started asking me how I was. She told me she loved me as well. We would talk about normal stuff, not just stuff that she was interested in or just stuff that would stress her out normally. And she started speaking differently. And I remember my older sister was going through a particularly like bad time, and we were discussing it on the phone, and she was obviously concerned. And I remember a conversation similar to that one a long time ago, and it was she wasn't concerned. It was more she was offended that my sister hadn't replied to her or not answered the phone or whatever. And it was more, why hasn't she done this and how come she hasn't done that? And she clearly was just like offended by it. But this time it was different, and that's sort of one of the moments where I realized she actually has changed. She's speaking differently, and she would keep asking me like, "What do I do?" Like, well, she won't answer the phone, and you know, I'm worried about her. And those words changed. The sentences coming out of her mouth changed, and that's one of the, like I said, one of the moments I knew. And yeah, you could tell she was actually just a concerned mother who cared about her child. Um, and it was so refreshing to hear that. Like my mum was just sort of worried about my sister and just wanted to know if there was anything that I could help her with. And it was nice. It was like she'd matured, and she became a good mum. And I actually find myself wanting to contact her more and see her more, and even share time with her. All the models that you see behind me, some of them were hers as well, and we would build models together. We would video call. I don't think I'd video called my mum a single time up until that last year she was alive, and it was just to build models together because we found this hobby that we were both interested in. She bought me models, I bought her models. She bought me that little black car down there. It's one of the last things she actually got me. And it was nice. My mum, she was 62, I believe, when she died. And I had many conversations about my mum with other people, and more often than not, when we were talking about that sort of dynamic between us, it always ended with, well, you've just got to accept it. You've just got to accept it. You've just got to accept who she is, and she's never going to change. And my mum shocked me. She did something I didn't think was possible. And let me just say, if my mum can do that, then there's not a lot that can't be done. I said this at the funeral as well. Said some people come to unconditional love naturally. She didn't, I don't think. But she eventually learned how to do it. And she learned how to just love for love, Which I think is a lot harder to do. And it's a lot more of an achievement. Learning how to do that is difficult, especially for someone of her age. But she put in that hard work. And she did amazing. And we all had that closer relationship with her before she actually died. And that's what I sort of remember now. And my answer to who I would sit with on a bench and talk to, if I could pick anyone, and it would be her. And the only reason that I would want to is to just tell her she was a good mum. Because I don't think I actually ever did tell her that, which is kind of sad, really. I did tell her that I was proud of her. I remember that. I remember saying, I'm like, what the hell? I'm proud of my mum. Well done, mum. Yeah. She went to a family gathering where there was another person there that she never got on with. And normally, she would have either not gone or caused a problem or something would have happened. But she didn't. She even communicated with this person. She made small talk. She put on a brave face because she was there for one of her grandchildren, or some of her grandchildren. She's got a lot of grandchildren. Yeah. And I could tell when I was talking to her about it, she was happy with herself, and she was probably proud of herself for doing it. And I actually said, no, I'm really proud of you. Well done. Like, you did it. You went into a room with this person you haven't liked for years. You find it difficult to be around them, and you did it anyway. And you did it for your family. So I told her I was proud. So, yeah. That's my mum. Yeah. I always found that whenever I was honest with my mum, I think that's how progress was made, even if it was to work towards the opposite end of the ultimatum. It's always better to just be honest. I told my mum that she was a bad mother, and I meant it. And sadly, that sort of hit me with reality as well. I think it's, as well as having those sort of parents outside of my blood family, admitting that and telling her that sort of helped me realize and be prepared for something that might not happen. And then also telling her how I felt, I think triggered her to improve herself and start being a better mum, a better grandmum as well. Absolutely. She was an amazing grandmother towards the end as well. She always was, to be fair. She always made sure that her grandchildren were spoiled whenever they were around. So, yeah. Used to used to take the piss out of her a little bit whenever me and my siblings would get together. She'd always say, because there was 5 of us and we were all spread all over the place, she would always say, "Oh, I need to get a picture of you," and we'd all like, "Oh, fucking hell, here we go." Now, I'd love nothing more than just to take a nice picture for her. That'd be really nice. So that's my mum. Thank you for talking. Thank you for listening to me talk. Yeah, I just felt inspired by that video, really, to make this one. So, see you next time.